5 here are the key strategies for being effective in relationships with anybody. I don't care what their challenges are. I don't care what gender they are. You can be more close, more connected, more effective, and virtually eliminate misunderstandings from those relationships if you master these primary strategies. Would you like that? Yeah. I hope so. The first strategy is feedback. Feedback answers the all-important question, how am I doing? Because when you're in a relationship with somebody else, you want to meet their needs. You want to contribute to their life. You want to make their life better. You need to know how effective you are at that. You need to know how you're doing. So you need information to answer that question. But let's say you're working with a young adult with some challenges. You're working with a small child. And what you're telling them is, you're doing it again. I've told you 1,000,000 times not to do that. You've made me mad. You're being inappropriate. That's disrespectful. What is that telling them about how they're doing? Is it telling them they're a great big screw-up? Is it telling them they have the potential to learn? Is it telling them how resourceful and resilient they are? It's telling them that they're a screw-up. And yet, unfortunately, the majority of the feedback kids with challenges get is criticism. All they hear is that they're screwing up. Now, who tends to be the most negative person in the world, and who do they tend to give the most negative feedback to? What's that? Yeah, you talking to you. You do something that was less than desirable, man, it was stupid. What were you thinking? Man, are you an idiot? And you're talking to yourself, not talking to anybody else. The #1 critic in the world is the inner critic. So you'll tell somebody else, oh, come on, everybody makes mistakes. It's only human. But when you do it, man, are you a moron? You don't model the very thing you want to encourage other people to do. Anybody else do that? Criticize themselves? Never. Why do you do that? Any thoughts? Why do you beat up on yourself? Of all the things you could say to yourself, to answer the question, how am I doing? Why do you choose criticism? Is it motivating in some way? What does it motivate you to do? Not to do it again. Possibly. I mean, for some people, it absolutely could be the case that if you get angry enough at yourself for what you did, it will give you leverage to not do it again. The unfortunate other side of that is someone doesn't want to feel bad about it again, so they won't even make an effort to do it again. So there's no opportunity to improve upon it. But in essence, the reason we learn self-criticism is because somewhere along the line, someone taught us mistakes are bad. That if you make a mistake, you will get criticized. You will be judged, you'll be put down, somebody will be mad at you. So you learned you're bad if you do less than perfect. Someone else beats up on you, their voice gets in your head, and that's the one you start using every time you make a mistake. I mean, there's some things not as much as it used to be, but I'll be having a moment and I'll say, Mom, is that you? Because I hear a critical voice in my head and it sounds oddly familiar. But the more I learn, the more self-aware I get, the quieter that voice gets, because it has a lot less credibility, because my experience has been able to trump that old script. The inner critic is as toxic as it gets. The feedback needs to be that no matter what outcome you create, you did well, because you made something happen even if it wasn't the outcome you wanted. The feedback loop in your head needs to be in service of resilience. Okay, you fell down, get back up. The ultimate feedback strategy is what I call focusing on the forward, not the fall. That might actually be in there later, but I'm going to give it to you now. It's the same strategy I used with my then 7-year-old when he spilled the entire box of cereal on the floor. I wanted him to focus on the fact that although he had a less than perfect moment, that he can still create something meaningful from that, other than feeling bad about the fact that it didn't go the way he wanted. Yes? Which part? Because I'm on a bit of a tangent right now. Focus on the forward, not the fall. Which is, you fell down. Okay. Do you want to feel bad about the fact that you fell down? Do you want to feel ashamed that this never should have happened? If you were looking where you're going, if you were paying attention, if you were being careful, you never would have done this? That's celebrating the fall. What you want is to focus on resilience. Okay, you fell down. Get back up. This is how you do it. So focusing on the forward instead of the fall, you simply acknowledge the fall occurred. All right, you tripped and fell. Okay, you accidentally spilled an entire box of cereal on the floor. Now what? You move it quickly into the solution. If you can do that with yourself, you can give that inner critic permanent laryngitis. You skip over any moment to beat yourself up. Feel bad, feel guilty. And simply say to yourself, all right, that went different. That's another reframe. Things don't go wrong, things don't go bad, they just go different. Because it's when you put that emotionally charged value judgment on it, that was bad, that went so wrong. When you use that kind of language, you get yourself stuck in that experience. So just tell yourself, well, that went different. Now what? What action can I take immediately to get myself back on track towards the outcome I wanted in the first place? Because the quicker you can get back up, the more resilient you are. And when you have kids that have a lot of challenges, that have an incredibly difficult time organizing, it's harder for them to get back up, so you want strategies that help them get there as fast as possible. Because it's too easy to stay down and get stuck and stay stuck. There was a hand back here.
I had a college talk, remarkable woman, and this stood right in. Her saying was, be open to outcome, not attached to outcome.
Be open to outcome, not attached to outcome. What does that mean for you?
Be open to things the way things might not turn out you want it. Because something doesn't turn out the way you want it to, it doesn't mean it's a negative outcome.
Right. Just because it turned out the way you want doesn't mean it's negative. What is it? It's feedback. If it didn't go the way you wanted, it's still information. So that was just another way of saying it can go the way you wanted or it can go different. However it goes is feedback. It tells you, how am I doing? Well, I took these specific steps. I had this intended outcome. I took these steps. What feedback did I get? Different. All right, so these steps did not give me the outcome I was looking for. What do I need to do instead? I'll do something else. Okay, I'll try that. Did it work out the way I wanted to? No. Okay, now I need to do something else. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Because it's not wrong. It's not bad. It's feedback. And if you can have that specific belief, let's say your value is you want to feel successful. You want to feel effective. But your belief is, if I take action and I get feedback, I'm successful. Because if any information you get is useful, if any information is feedback, anytime you take action, anytime you create results, you are successful. Because you're in action, you're in motion. You're not instead paralyzed by fear because you want it to go right every single time. It has to be perfect or I'm a failure. If you have those beliefs, you will not take action. You'll live in fear. Now, in terms of feedback in communication, feedback in relationships, in order to know how you're doing, how effective you are at being a friend, a teacher, a colleague, a spouse, you must be able to talk to each other. Otherwise, you keep doing the same annoying thing over and over again. The other person doesn't want to tell you what it is. They're hoping you'll figure it out because of the frown on your face or little other passive-aggressive things you're doing because you're mad at them. Or you're thinking they should just know, and if they don't know, that they're being immature, they're being willful, they're being spiteful, they're being selfish. And nowhere along the way did you ever communicate to them that what they're doing is not effective for you. But you must have some kind of mechanism in your relationship to be open, honest, and straightforward with each other. You need to have a mechanism for feedback. Because you've got to nip these annoyances in the bud. And more importantly, if something's happening that's working for you, you want it to continue. If something really makes you feel loved, really makes you feel significant, you want it to keep happening that way. Because if you don't give the person that feedback, the way they need the feedback, they'll think it didn't work and they'll stop doing it. And then one day you'll say, remember that thing you started doing, and why did you stop that? Well, I didn't know that was working for you. Well, couldn't you just tell? No, you didn't say anything. Well, I shouldn't have to say anything. Are we seeing the rules conflict in that conversation? So there are 4 steps for negotiating feedback into a relationship. The first one is you need to agree that feedback is absolutely necessary for a healthy relationship. You as a partnership, again, spouse, parent-teacher, teacher-student, colleagues, you need to agree that unless there is feedback present in your relationship can't remain healthy and it can't grow. So that's the first thing. The second one is you need to agree to what you'll give feedback on. Case in point, I often monologue in social situations. I get nervous, I get on a topic that I like, and I will just talk on and on and on and on. I know that creates issues. So between my wife and I, she and I have an agreement that she will give me feedback on monologuing. So if she gives me feedback on that, I'm ready for it because we've agreed to it. Okay? So the third one is agree to how the feedback will be given. When, where, and how. So I've agreed to receive feedback on monologuing. But I need to have some quality control on how it's given to me so I'm not embarrassed by it. Because feedback needs to be useful. You don't want to get defensive. You don't want your feelings hurt. So she's not going to say, honey, will you shut up? That's not helpful feedback when I'm monologuing. I don't feel supported. If anything, it's going to tick me off. So the fourth step in negotiating feedback is agree to how each of you will respond when you're given the feedback. Okay? So first we agreed that it's absolutely necessary. Because in terms of how am I doing, I want to do what's going to make our relationship work, how we're going to stay connected, how we're going to grow. Next, I need to know what's working and what's not working. So if there are specific things we need to agree to feedback on, we need to agree to those specific topics. Then we need to agree to how are we going to let each other know what's working and not working. So in terms of the monologuing, what we did agree to is that she would just say, honey, I think so-and-so has a question. I think so-and-so wanted to say something. And when she says that to me in that way, I know it means I've been monologuing. And because she did it in such a respectful way, I receive it with gratitude. Because in terms of how you respond to the feedback, you must agree to accept it with gratitude. Not hostility, not resentment, not bitterness, or you will never get feedback again. Because why would you be upset with somebody who did the very thing you asked them to do? They kept their agreement. You raising a hand or stretching? Itching, even better. Just 4 steps for agreeing to how are you going to let each other know how you're doing in a relationship. And if something comes up, something new, and there is no conversation, there's no agreement around it, you can simply say, something has happened in our relationship lately that, is kind of new, and I'd like to give you some feedback on it. Are you ready to hear it? And if they say, well, now is not a good time, can we talk about it a little bit later? Sure, when? Schedule for like an hour or so. That way the person can get ready for the fact that they're maybe about to hear something that they don't want to hear. Because even though it's something new, because you haven't negotiated how it's going to be given to you yet, it might be a little rough around the edges. But because you have made that essential first agreement, that feedback is critical in your relationships, you're okay and open with feedback. And then as you get new information on what this new issue is, you begin to negotiate. Someone says, well, it really bugs me when you do this. Okay, I understand that. If you said it this way, I'd hear it better. Are you comfortable giving it to me that way? Sure, that works. As long as when I say it this way, you know it means this. Okay, we agree to that. Now you disagree to the language. Okay, when does this specific thing happen? What happens in these situations? Okay, so what happens in that situation, this is how you need to let me know so I maintain my dignity when it occurs. Is this making sense? 4 steps. That's it.